you watch the sport of gymnastics on your TV, gymnasts make it look very easy. Gymnasts spend around 18 hours in the gym every week perfecting what they do. Gymnastics is a very challenging sport and it's very hard on your body. There are 4 different events in gymnastics and each one has its own set of challenges. When gymnasts train, they do conditioning to build up muscle and stretch to help prevent injuries. But in a sport as challenging as gymnastics, injuries are very common.
Gymnastics is considered a high-risk sport for injuries with a high incidence rate and a significant number of athletes experiencing injuries annually. The most common injuries include sprains, growth plate injuries, and bone injuries. More than 90% of gymnasts are injured in any given season. The most common injuries are sprains affecting 19% of gymnasts, growth plate injuries affecting 16%, and bone injuries affecting 15%.
My name is Pip. I've been doing gymnastics since I was 3 years old, 10 years. In October 2023, my mom brought me to the doctors for my knee. That whole summer before it was hurting me, didn't know why. It turns out I had something called osteochondritis dissecans, where the bone in my knee started to disintegrate from over time pounding on it with gymnastics. Overall, I was on crutches for about 7 months, on and off, throughout about 2 years. And while I was healing, I lost so many skills because I wasn't allowed to tumble or even run or jump on my knee. So I was doing bars most of the time, and I got really good on bars and learned so many new skills while I was out.
Hello, I'm Jason Watkins. I'm the owner and head coach at Cape Cod Gymnastics Center. And Sophia has asked me to talk a little bit about gymnastics, specifically on injuries and dealing with injuries as an athlete. Gymnastics is a little bit of a different sport in that we train year-round. There's almost 2 seasons. There's a competitive season, which we're working on routines, but also everything is on hard landings and actual apparatuses. And then in the summertime, we have kind of our training and learning new skills season. So they're very different, but really, unfortunately, you need both. So gymnastics is one of those sports that it's almost impossible not to do it full time. And because there's a full-time aspect to the sport, it's important to maintain strength and flexibility and conditioning for a lot of reasons, but specifically because it's one of the ways we hope to prevent injuries. There's really 2 types of injuries in gymnastics that we deal with. We deal with injuries caused by a crash, which when you're on a high bar or flipping over a vault or just rolling an ankle on floor or crashing on the beam, you can have an injury occur that's kind of instant. And those injuries are sometimes easier to deal with because you know how they happened, when they happened, and they're usually something very specific. It's either a break, a tear, or something like that. So you know what you're dealing with. The other type of injury that we deal with a lot is overuse injuries. And those are tricky because a lot of times we don't know when they started, how they started. Talking a little bit about the wear and tear injuries, those can be very frustrating because a lot of times the gymnast knows that it's well, my leg's not broken, I can keep going. But if it's a sprain or a ligament, rotator cuff, a knee injury, you can think you're pushing through and that's commendable, but you're only making it worse and it's going to make it harder to come back from and it's going to take longer to come back from. So let's say if a kid has, I think you talked to one of the gymnasts, Pip, had a really bad knee injury and she has a high pain threshold. So for her, she tried to work through it for a long time. She's not a complainer, so no one really was sure whether it was a bad injury until we actually had confirmation through MRIs and her seeing various doctors. It then gave us a path to help her recover. And it was a long recovery, but it was a wear and tear injury. And then at the same time, she wanted to kind of maintain some skills, so she would come in and work on bars, everything that she could do without putting any pressure on her knee. So trying to balance that rehab and being able to continue in the sport and not fall completely behind, it can be a very tricky thing.
After a gymnast is hurt, they have to do physical therapy to help rebuild the muscle they lost and safely go back into doing everything. Physical therapy is crucial for gymnasts to address injuries, improve performance, and prevent future problems. It focuses on pain management, reducing inflammation, restoring mobility, and rebuilding strength through a personalized approach. Physical therapists work with gymnasts to assess injuries, develop specific programs, and guide them back into training safely, according to NY Sports and Spinal Physical Therapy.
Hi, my name is Madison Otto. I'm trying to go level 7 gymnast. I hurt my ankle in October. I injured it and I tore ligaments. I tore 2 ligaments. I had a bunch of fluid and I had a bone bruise. And I would come into the gym every day still like do conditioning, and I would do some bars, but I did have to miss out on like a couple meets. And then I went to 2 different physical therapies and they both like helped me gain my strength back. And then I went to Elsbeth in somewhere and then she like helped me get my strength back in my ankle, and now I'm all good to go.
Hi, my name is Asa. I'm a level 8 gymnast, and one of my setbacks in gymnastics was scoliosis. It affected the way I do certain skills, like back handsprings on beam. And one way I helped myself with that is doing alternative skills like back tucks instead, and then taking out my back handsprings.
Hi, my name is Kim. I'm trying to go level 8 this year, and in 2022 I injured my knees and I was diagnosed with Osgood-Schlatt's disease, which is basically just like built up calcium like under and around my knees, and it causes swelling and like a lot of like pain and like aches. So it was really hard for me to keep up with like my tumbling and my floor, and especially beam. So I had to take a break from that for a really long time. So I was mainly doing bars, and ever since then I've been stretching my knees. I've been doing like certain like conditioning and stretching to like regain the power in them, since I had to stay off of them for a while. And now I am back. I still need to wear like compression socks to make sure I can still do a lot of the tumbling, and yeah.
In a sport like gymnastics, when you get hurt, you continue to practice and still show up every day to maintain your strength, so when you heal, it's easier to go back into your routines. Injuries are something almost every gymnast has to go through. You just need to use them to your advantage. For example, if you break your foot, you can take that time to work on bars. To prevent injuries, you should regularly work on strength and conditioning and focus on your health.